Trump administration official now says there are no plans for a summit between President Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin in the immediate future, despite assurances from President Trump that they would soon be meeting to discuss the war in Ukraine. Let's go to CNN's Kristen Holmes, who is at the White House. Kristen, the president obviously has been talking up this potential meeting for several days. What happened?
Yeah, Brianna, that's what we're piecing together right now. Now, we started getting a little bit of reporting last night that it seemed as though this meeting was in jeopardy because, as you'll recall, President Trump had said that this week Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, was going to meet with other high-level advisors from Russia and that they would be ironing out details ahead of a proposed meeting between Vladimir Putin and President Trump. Yesterday, we reported that this meeting that was supposed to happen between Rubio and Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, had been tabled for now, despite the fact that the two had talked on the phone, which really called into question what exactly was going to happen with this meeting between Putin and Trump. And now you have this stunning admission from an administration official saying that essentially this meeting is not happening anytime soon. And just to give you a little bit of the broader picture here, let's talk about what we know. We know that last Sunday, a week ago, President Trump said he flirted with the idea publicly of giving Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Then on Thursday, he had a 2.5-hour-long phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. We know that Tomahawk missiles came up in that conversation. Putin did not want the United States giving these long-range missiles that could go deep into Russia to Ukraine. Then President Trump comes out of this phone call saying that they had a great talk. They're going to meet together. They said within 2 weeks or so, pretty quick. And then they talked about these high-level advisors meeting this week. The next day, President Zelensky has a meeting here at the White House with President Trump, in which Trump informs them that he will not be giving him those Tomahawk missiles, and it gets pretty tense. They talk about what land Ukraine is going to have to give up, and they both leave in a way that seemed to be uncomfortable. At least that's how it was described to me by at least one administration officials. Now we get to this week. As you noted, he's been talking about this meeting coming up, and now we hear that the meeting is not going to happen, at least anytime in the immediate future. Now, President Trump himself did seem to say that he was still working on the end of the Ukraine-Russia war just now in the Rose Garden, saying that he was working on his 9th war to end. But I do want to tell you what President Zelensky of Ukraine said, because I think this is fairly interesting. This is how he is reading the situation. He says that Russia became less interested in diplomacy after the United States declined to provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, at least for now.
Very interesting connection he drew there. Kristen Holmes, thank you live for us at the White House.
I'm joined now by Beth Sanner, a former Deputy Director of National Intelligence, also a CNN national security analyst. And responding to that announcement about the postponement, Beth, the Kremlin, I believe, said that you can't postpone something that doesn't have a date attached to it. What does this tell you about where things are headed following the phone call with Putin last week and the meeting with Zelensky?
Right. So we're on a roller coaster, right? And it's got a lot of ups and downs. But Putin's not on a roller coaster. He's on a train. And it's a steady train. And it does not deviate from its path. And I think that that's what we really have to get our heads around, is that basically no matter where we are in the cycle, that train and what he wants and that destination has not changed throughout this entire thing. We are in the same place that we were with Russia at the beginning of the Trump administration. The only thing that's changed is that they're bombing the you-know-what out of Ukraine at a level that's many times higher than it was before inauguration.
And that is significant. Doesn't this lend more credibility to the argument that the only thing Putin is going to respond to is force or the threat of force, given that that call last week only happened because President Trump said he might deliver some Tomahawks to Kyiv, which now he's kind of walked away from?
So I think that in a way, maybe the framing there is a little bit off in part. The Tomahawks forced Putin to pick up the phone and get them turned off. Would the threat of Tomahawks actually have changed the train that Putin's on?
Yeah.
Probably not. Right? So what forces Putin to capitulate is not, there is no silver bullet that will do that. It is a process that requires concerted pressure across all of these things, from economics to military. And we've delivered almost no military equipment to Ukraine this year, despite this startup of this new process of getting the Europeans to buy equipment. So yeah, we need more, but like we should also kind of modulate ourselves and our expectations. There will not be tomahawks peace.
Yeah, I wonder what you make of the president's approach here. Is this embarrassing for the White House, you think? Because before this, there was supposed to be this trilateral or two bilateral meetings. This was after Alaska, which was 2 months ago now, the summit between Trump and Putin. Do you get the sense that the president, his advisors realize that Putin effectively, through these moves, is just stringing the White House along?
So, I mean, the president acknowledged during this last
Right.
go-round that, yeah, Putin probably is trying to string things along. So then the question is, what do you do about that, right? So I think that he understands it. It's not that. And I also think that you actually have to have negotiations with the perpetrator in order to get something done, right? But like, this is just something that is going to take a long time. And this idea that coming out of Gaza, you're all hepped up on this success and you're just going to all of a sudden bring out your magic wand and change things, that is not realistic. Okay, so this is just not something that we're going to be able to turn around quickly, and we're going to have to take a much more concerted effort at this. The Europeans here are doing their part. They're going to meet on Thursday. They're going to take that money, that's the Russian sovereign debt, 163 billion, and they're going to turn it into a loan to Ukraine to fund this war and to keep them afloat, and particularly with these attacks on Ukraine energy, they need that money. I'm hearing that the United States might not be behind that effort now after we push them to do this sort of thing and to put pressure on Russia. Oh, okay, now we're not going to put pressure on Russia. So we have to decide, I think you need to, fight and talk at the same time.
Yeah. Speaking of Gaza, I did want to ask you about. The insistence from the White House and others, based on this 20-point plan, that there would be a sort of international intermediary security force that would be sent to Gaza. The president insisted on social media that there are allies in the region that are just lining up to go. Our reporting indicates that that is not the case. Which is closer to the truth?
There's some countries not in the region who probably are willing to send troops. But I do think that it's going to take a lot of pressure, because there's a lot of who wants to go in and forcibly disarm Hamas? Nobody. Only people that want to do that is Israel. And we're trying to keep them from not doing that. That's why J.D. Vance is there today.
That is a good point. Beth Sander, always great to get your perspective. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.